even healthy minds are prone to false beliefs. And today, we'll cover a particular type that is draining billions of dollars from people's wallets. Welcome to the Carlat Psychiatry Podcast, keeping psychiatry honest since 2003.
I'm Chris Aiken, the editor-in-chief of the Carlat Psychiatry Report.
And I'm Kellie Newsome, a psychiatric NP and a dedicated reader of every issue. Let's start with a scenario. You have a private practice in Chicago. A woman calls you and says she was referred by a colleague, that she had heard you work very well with college students and wants to see if you'd be a good fit for her son. After some questions, she decides you are the one. Her son will be in Chicago for the summer and she wants to make sure he has weekly therapy established. In fact, she believes he won't keep up with it unless she pays in advance. And she's going to pay your private rates. Money is not an issue, she gently reminds you. You ask her to send $8,000, but when the check arrives, it's for $12,000. You call her up. She's distressed and embarrassed and ask if you could send her the $4,000 difference first so the check won't bounce. You hesitate, but she's been very kind and easy to work with. You send her the check, and when it clears, you deposit hers. But the $12,000 bounces, and she is nowhere to be found.
Most likely, this woman doesn't have a son. This is a common scam. In recent years, scams have grown up. They are as personalized as the ads we see on social media, and there is a scam for everyone, every woman, child, and man, and gender unspecified. This isn't even the only scam that targets mental health professionals. Last year, a very believable voice called my emergency line saying the city had been trying to reach me about a fine for missing jury duty, and that if I didn't pay, I would be arrested. Apparently, it's common for doctors to skip jury duty, and someone had been calling every emergency line in the city, or more likely the country, hoping for fake payouts. But this podcast is not about us. It's about our patients, who may be victimized by scammers and for whom we may be the only ones who can warn them, or who they feel safe talking about it after the shame and betrayal of a scam hits.
We opened with a therapy scam because it illustrates a point. Scam victims are no longer limited to older people, lonely people, or people with mental illness. Everyone can be scammed, and more are. According to the FBI, more than 1 in 3 Americans report being scammed in the past year, and the Gen Zs are just as likely to be victims as the boomers.
That is a surprising statistic because for years we've associated scams with older adults. There are a lot of papers in the geropsychiatry literature, and they find older adults are more vulnerable to scams because of factors like social isolation, their economic affluence, struggles with technology, and cognitive impairments. Susceptibility to scams has even been identified as an early sign of dementia. But those studies are based on scams of yesteryear, which were not sophisticated enough to rope the average person in. The scammers have gotten better, and you don't need to have cognitive problems to fall into their trap. There is a scam for everyone. Like the job scam, where someone goes through interviews and background checks and is finally offered a job, but then has to turn over money in the final step through some kind of convoluted scheme like buying equipment. Sometimes their phony employer sends them a fake check that's too large and, as in the therapy scam above, asks for part of it back.
Among the 1 in 3 Americans who were scammed last year, a third suffered serious financial consequences, and less than half reported the scam. Today, we speak with Cathy Wilson, a therapist who specializes in victims of financial fraud from the Life Paths Counseling Center in Colorado.
I got working with scam victims a little over 10 years ago. I had a client who had been scammed and went looking for resources to help both of us and found nothing as far as the mental health impact. As a result, I wrote something and put it on my website since there was nothing else out there. That webpage got so much traffic, it far surpassed all of my other pages combined. That led to writing a book and then creating training for mental health folks. And now I'm in the advocacy realm as well. We'll call ourselves fraud fighters. There is a scam for everyone. So we all need to be careful and on guard. Perhaps the most prevalent is romance scams. There's one in particular that combines crypto investing with it that we refer to as pig butchering. No one really likes that term, but it can start very innocently. I'm referring to them personally as wrong number texts. When you get a text and it's, "Hey, are you on your way?" and you don't know who this is, that's a scammer trying to start a conversation with you. And here is where our kindness can get us in trouble. When you respond, then they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't ruin your day. Have a good day." And sometimes they might come back and say something more to try and get you talking. If they can get a conversation going, then they can eventually lead that to friendship or romance and investing talk. Scammers are playing a long game with this. So they may wait till 3 months before they bring up anything about investing. And then what a client might say about a romance scam, they might start talking about this person they met and they're falling in love quickly, but they haven't met in person. There's multiple reasons they can't meet in person. So if a client starts talking about a new friend that wants them to invest, these are warning signs for us.
Pig butchering can start with wrong numbers, social media DMs, or connections through dating sites. Soon, they will move the conversation off the platform where they might be detected and onto anonymous texting app like WhatsApp. One victim was contacted by the supposed lead singer of an obscure 90s rock band that she once admired. At first, the fuel is romance or friendship, but greed quickly takes over as the driving force. The scammer will casually mention that they've been making big money through a crypto trading service. Naturally, you want to know more. They will first advise caution, suggesting you invest only a small amount, like a few $100s. Next, you are watching that money grow in what looks like a legitimate trading site. Scammers have created convincing trading interfaces that replicate the real thing. When your $600 grows to $1,500, you wish that you had invested more, and soon you've wired over your entire retirement fund. But the news is all good. The $50,000 you invested has now grown to nearly $200,000. This scam can go on as long as you're willing to pay. But when you try to take the money out, it usually hits a brick wall. But not right away. This is called pig butchering because the aim is to use every part of the pig. So they'll tell you that the trading platform is based in Taiwan and you need to pay international taxes before you can withdraw the funds. At this point, the scam changes to a good cop, bad cop game. The person who introduced you to the crypto platform becomes the good cop, engaged on your behalf and enraged over the bureaucratic delay. They offer to help. And there's more back and forth, and eventually you borrow $10,000 from one of your relatives to pay the taxes or supposed taxes so that you can secure your gains.
In Shane Haynes' case, it wasn't $10,000. As the CEO of a Kansas bank, Shane had access to serious money. Scammers robbed him $47 million in a pig butchering scam that played out much like the one we described. But most of the money wasn't his. The bulk of it came from customer deposits at the Heartland Bank, with smaller change from the other funds Shane had access to, $40,000 from his church, $10,000 from an investment club, and $60,000 from his daughter's college fund. Besides losing his job and his savings, Shane is now serving a 24-year prison sentence for embezzlement. His story is unique only in the magnitude of the loss. Pig butchering is going on everywhere. Last month, The Economist reported on lawyers, police officers, FBI agents, and professors who've been butchered, as well as a psychiatrist who declined to report the fraud because he was afraid his clients would find out and his reputation would be tarnished.
I learned something from Shane's story. A few years ago, I was treating a patient who was being victimized by what looked to me like an obvious scam. This was before scammers got smart. It was a variation of the old Nigerian prince scam, also known as the Spanish prisoner, which date back to the early 1600s. My patient had fallen in love with a man she never met. He was in Greece and wanted to come visit her, and she had to send him $6,000 for the plane ticket. Now he needed more money to secure some government papers so that he could fly, and she was about to send him another $3,000. Her sister had urged her to stop. "Wait," I said. "I think your sister is right here. This sounds like a common scam." I was naive, though. When people are deep in the scam, you can do no more to snap them out of it than you can convince a die-hard Democrat to vote for Trump or a MAGA voter that Kamala Harris was right. The more people lose in the scam, the more they tend to dig down their heels. Cognitive dissonance is a hard thing to break. So my patient waited at the airport despite my advice and waited again a second time.
The same thing happened with Shane. When the FBI got wind of his unusual cash transfers, they came knocking. Shane was unfazed, convinced that he had much more money in his investing account than smaller seed money he had borrowed from his customers. When the FBI told him he had been scammed, he didn't believe them. He didn't even miss a beat. He went straight to his advisory board to ask for a loan so he could pay the international taxes and collect his reward.
Scams play on our deepest hopes and fears. Next week, we'll learn how to help people untangle themselves from these psychological webs. It's a lesson that applies to any self-destructive road or false belief.
Here's a preview of the CME quiz for this episode. Earn CME for each episode through the link in the show notes. True or false? In the US, victims of scams are as equally common in older and younger adults. Cathy Wilson is a licensed professional counselor in Colorado. She offers online courses on helping victims of scams and is the author of The Emotional Impact of Being Scammed and How to Recover. Do you see patients with symptoms of ADHD who use cannabis? You're not alone. And in our April issue, we interview Sarah Polly on how to manage this complex picture and when to use or avoid stimulants. Find it online and get $30 off your first year's subscription with the promo code podcast. Thank you for helping us stay free of commercial support.